Hey, what's going on YouTube? Son of Sanguinius here, and today we're going to be continuing our Blood Angels Tactics videos with a look at the Sternguard veterans. So they come in at 110 points. They are Weapon Skill 4, Ballistic Skill 4, Strength 4, Toughness 4, 1 Wound, Initiative 4, 2 Attacks, Leadership 9 with a 3-up Armor save. For War Gear, they have Power Armor, Bolt Pistol, Bolt Gun, Frag and Crack Grenades, and Special Issue Ammunition. Special rules are And They Shall Know No Fear, Combat Squads, and Furious Charge. For options, you may include up to 5 additional veterans for 22 points per model. Any model may replace his bolt gun with a Storm Bolter for 5 points, or a Combi Flamer, Grav, Melta, or Plasma for 10 points per model. 2 veterans may each take 1 item from the special weapons or heavy weapons lists. The veteran sergeant may replace his bolt pistol and or bolt gun with one of the following: a chain sword for free, a grav pistol or plasma pistol for 15 points, a lightning claw for 15 points, a power weapon for 15 points, or a power fist for 25 points. Additionally, the veteran sergeant may also take melta bombs for 5 points. And lastly, the unit may select a drop pod, rhino, or razorback as a dedicated transport. So, Sternguard veterans, great in Space Marine Codex, and also great in the Blood Angels Codex. Honestly, one of the best shooting units in the game, as far as I'm concerned. They are incredibly versatile and can dish out some seriously powerful shots. Now, when looking at Sternguard veterans, it's tempting to take, special and heavy weapons because you don't need the model tax as you do with tactical squads. You can just 2 veterans may each take 1 item from the special weapons or heavy weapons list. But before you jump the gun here and start upgrading these guys, I would implore you to remember that the reason why you buy Sternguard veterans as opposed to another tactical squad is to get access to that special issue ammunition. And when you start throwing on all these special weapons and heavy weapons on your Sternguard squad, you're losing the main reason why you buy Sternguard. I'm raising my hand here. I fell into that trap because when I first got in, I was like, oh man, these Sternguard veterans are cool. Special issue ammunition. They can't really be that good, but oh boy, they are good. So good, in fact, that a basic Sternguard squad, just left all on its own for 110 points, will be effective. You really, honestly, do not need to upgrade them at all in order for them to fulfill their combat role. And again, this all comes down to that special issue ammunition. So with special issue ammunition, you get 4 flavors of awesomeness. First up, we have Dragonfire, which is Strength 4, AP 5, ignores cover. So for Dragonfire, it's going to be great. It ignores cover, and you can basically just wipe out units in your opponent's army that have armor value 5 or 6, because they're going to lose their armor save and they're going to lose their cover save, and unless they have something that gives them an invuln or something, which is unlikely in a lot of cases. You're just going to wipe them out. Then you have Hellfire, which is the Poison 2+ ammunition. Honestly, a really great ammunition. Probably the most versatile one out of all of these, because you're wounding on a 2+ no matter what it is. Not so much a big deal against vehicles, but a huge deal against monstrous creatures. Monstrous creatures are still affected by poison. So the fact that you can, wound a Carnifex on a 2+ is awesome, especially if you get within rapid fire range. It's going to be devastating. And also things that are, just generally high toughness. So things like, Nurgle Marines, Plague Marines, things like that. Hellfire rounds are the way to go. Then you have Kraken, which is the AP4 30-inch range. Great against armor value 4 enemies. I mentioned before that there was something you could do if, say, you had, like a Sanguinary Priest in here with something like an Auspex, and I sort of, fumbled and mumbled my way through it, and I eventually just sort of dropped the point. But if you are going up against enemies, let's say Orc Boys with heavy armor or Tyranid Warriors, Assuming you're within 12 inches, it's actually better to use an Auspex from your Sanguinary Priest to give up his shooting, and then just use the Kraken ammunition against those Orc Boys or Tyranid Warriors or anything that has an armor value of 4. As opposed to something like the Dragonfire, because if you use the Dragonfire, sure, it ignores cover, but they're going to get their armor save anyway. Whereas if you use Kraken with an Auspex, not only are you cutting through their armor, but you're also reducing the effectiveness of their cover save. Now, granted, most cover saves are 5+, and so, well, what's the difference between 5+ and 6+? Well, you're essentially reducing the effectiveness of their save by 1/2. You're changing their chances of surviving from 1 in 3 to 1 in 6, basically. And when you think about it in terms of that, that's huge. So Kraken rounds are definitely good. Plus, you get a little extra range bonus, an extra 6 inches on your shots. And lastly, we have the Vengeance round, which is the AP3 Gets Hot 18-inch range shell that is primarily a Marine killer. They call it Vengeance for a reason. But it is definitely risky, although I could definitely see using it against something like Warp Talons or your opponent's Vanguard veterans, or anything that's armor save 3 that can be potentially devastating to the squad. I think it can be worth the risk, especially if you have a Sanguinary Priest in there, like I mentioned a little bit earlier in the video. So that is why basic Sternguard are great. But that being said, is there anything that would make sense with upgrading them? Well, there is the option of combi weapons, and combi weapons are one of those things that's sort of debated about among Space Marine players and all of the derivatives of Space Marines as to whether or not they're actually worth it. Because for 10 points, sure, you are giving them more options, and more options is always nice. Especially giving them something that can be used as anti-armor, like giving them combi Melta, combi Plasma, combi Grav. Although I think if you're gonna use a combi weapon for anti-vehicles, I don't think Grav is necessarily the most optimal. I would lean more toward a Melta or Plasma gun personally, but combi weapons are an option. As to whether or not you think everyone should have a combi weapon for 10 points per model is up to you, because you're going to be giving up you only got one shot with it, a shot that can miss. So granted, the odds are in your favor, but there's still that possibility. The most reliable combi weapon is the Flamer, because that can't miss. But I honestly don't know. I'm kind of torn on it, because while I do think that having a Sternguard squad full of combi weapons is clearly the most optimal thing you could think of, because at that point they can pretty much kill anything if they got combi Meltas with special issue ammunition. However, that just adds on more points to the squad, and for 10 points for one shot, some people will consider it worth it. Other people may not. And honestly, I'm kind of torn. I can sort of see both sides of the argument on that one. But regardless, combi weapons are certainly an option if you wanted to expand the abilities of your Sternguard squad without sacrificing the special issue ammunition that you would have to with a special or heavy weapon. So moving on, I mentioned this before, that you can throw a Sanguinary Priest in here for survivability. Just giving him Auspex, because who really cares about the Sanguinary Priest shooting compared to the rest of the Sternguard squad? And the very fact that you have to give the bastard a bolt pistol for 1 point in this Codex, yeah, that's I don't understand that, GW. I really don't. Why not just give the bastard a bolt pistol instead of forcing us to pay 1 point for the bolt pistol? I think I mentioned this before, that I honestly don't really factor that in. I don't play in tournaments or anything. All my stuff's casual. But if someone came to me and said, "Hey, my list is 1 point over the limit because I had to give one of my HQ choices, I had to buy him a bolt pistol for 1 point before I upgraded him to have a different range weapon," I think I'd be cool with that. I'd be like, brother, you can, have that bolt pistol. It really doesn't change. And the fact that it's okay. Here's the thing. they couldn't have charged just 5 points. I'm getting off on a tangent here, but they couldn't have charged just 5 points for, the Stormbolter, because the Stormbolter is, or they couldn't have charged us 5 points for the bolt pistol because the Stormbolter is 5 points, and the Stormbolter is clearly superior. So they had to, reduce it down, and I guess someone, I don't know. I'm getting off on a tangent here, but you can put a Sanguinary Priest in the Sternguard squad to make it much more survivable. And for transports, honestly, that sort of depends on their battlefield role. You can go with Rhinos or Razorbacks if you wanted them to be much more mobile. I can also see, having them sit in the backfield on distant objectives, just foot slogging it if they're just going to be, sitting there laying down some Kraken shots down. That is also an option. Additionally, I can also see them, dropping in with, a drop pod with, combi flamers and just disembarking and flaming everything and just, shooting everything to oblivion. That is also an option. Although, frankly, as far as suicide squads go, I know people do it with Sternguard, but I don't really like the idea of just throwing away such a good and versatile unit away, at the drop of a hat, just for one good turn of shooting, and maybe one good turn of shooting. You never know with the dice. Statistically they're in your favor, but I'm sure we all know that the dice gods are fickle about about whether or not they pay attention to those statistics. So, anyway, overall, I think that Sternguard veterans are an excellent unit, and just the sheer amount of versatility that's within the unit, the 4 flavors of special issue ammunition, they can literally go up against almost anything that's out there, bar the super heavy vehicles and whatnot and all that shenanigans. But generally speaking, whatever you throw Sternguard at is probably going to be eliminated, simply because they have all the tools that they need. It's they can basically deal with almost every single infantry model on the tabletop, and if you go with combi weapons, you can sort of kit them out for even more anti-infantry and get some charges in there with something like combi flamers, or you can kit them out for anti-vehicle stuff with combi meltas and combi plasma. I suppose you could also do combi grav to for some more anti-vehicle stuff, but honestly, as I've said before, I don't think grav is necessarily the best anti-vehicle weapon out there. I would go for something like melta or plasma. So anyway, that's just my take on Sternguard veterans. I'm sure you guys have your own thoughts. Feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.